King Solomon's story begins in the final years of David's rule, during a period when the royal household struggled with illness, political tension, and competing heirs. David's health declined, and his sons pushed aggressively for control. Court factions supported different candidates. Advisors debated succession, and the palace fell into an atmosphere filled with pressure and uncertainty. In the middle of these disputes, David made a decisive choice and named Solomon as the next king. This move ended the immediate struggle, but did not erase the tension already rooted inside the royal family. Solomon stepped into power with the awareness that enemies surrounded him from the start, and he acted quickly to secure his position. He removed individuals who threatened the transfer of authority, reorganized the palace, and made clear that he intended to rule with confidence and strong judgment. These early actions strengthened the kingdom and signaled a new era that aimed to bring unity after years of internal conflict. Solomon looked for guidance and clarity as he began his reign, and the story of his journey to Gihon became one of the most remembered moments in his life. He offered sacrifices and asked for wisdom to lead the people with fairness and understanding. This request shaped his identity as a ruler known for insight rather than aggression. The account of the two women claiming the same child shows the type of judgment that built his reputation. When both women insisted they were the mother, Solomon proposed a harsh solution to reveal the truth. His method exposed the genuine mother through her compassion, and the people saw this decision as proof that he understood human nature with rare clarity. Word spread through nearby regions. Leaders heard that Solomon made decisions with logic and accuracy. His reputation grew long before he built monuments or expanded trade networks. He became known as a thinker who paid attention to detail and handled disputes with a level of understanding that impressed even the most skeptical observers. Solomon strengthened his rule by forming alliances that shaped the economic and political structure of his kingdom. His marriage to a daughter of the pharaoh tied Israel to Egypt, reducing the risk of conflict with one of the strongest nations of the time. This alliance encouraged trade, opened supply routes, and created a stable relationship between two powerful regions. Caravans crossed borders with greater freedom. Merchants carried grain, gold, livestock, fabric, and metals. New ports developed. Trade with Tyre increased through agreements with King Hiram, who supplied the prized cedar wood needed for construction. These arrangements improved the kingdom each year, pulling wealth into the cities and giving craftsmen and builders continuous work. Under Solomon, Israel grew into an influential force with resources that supported large government projects, military expansion, and detailed administrative systems that reached deep into daily life. Among all of Solomon's accomplishments, the construction of the temple in Jerusalem stands as the most defining. He gathered workers, metals, timber, and stone from across the region. Thousands labored for years to complete the structure. Every stone was shaped with precision. Timber traveled from distant lands. Gold covered ceilings, walls, and panels. Decorative carvings filled the interior. Courts and chambers followed specific measurements that matched the vision described during planning. When the temple was completed, it became the center of the kingdom's identity. Rituals took place inside its courts. Priests worked according to rules that Solomon established. The dedication ceremony filled the city with crowds who saw the temple as a symbol of unity, leadership, and spiritual meaning. The project displayed Solomon's ambition and discipline. It also showed the kingdom's ability to organize complex tasks on a scale unmatched by earlier rulers. Solomon expanded his ambitions far beyond religious structures. He built a grand palace and constructed defenses in key areas across the kingdom. He created storage cities, supply centers, and administrative districts that kept resources flowing smoothly. He strengthened his military with chariots and trained soldiers. His officials collected taxes and managed labor forces that supported state projects. While these efforts increased the kingdom's power, they also placed pressure on the population. Families faced heavy work requirements. Taxes rose to fund palace expansion, military growth, and public construction. The kingdom became wealthy, but the burden on ordinary households grew each year. These pressures would play an important role in the kingdom's future after Solomon died. Solomon's reputation as a scholar and intellectual expanded across nations. He studied plants, animals, social behavior, leadership methods, and human motives. His knowledge impressed visitors from distant regions. The famous account of the Queen of Sheba traveling a long distance to test him demonstrates the reach of his reputation. She arrived with gold, spices, and gifts. She questioned him on politics, economics, and governance. Solomon answered with confidence and precision. She left convinced that the stories about his wisdom did not exaggerate. Her visit strengthened his international standing and placed him among the most respected rulers of his era. As centuries passed, folklore grew around Solomon's name. Later writers, influenced by medieval traditions, expanded his reputation by describing him as a ruler who held knowledge of spiritual forces. These stories were not historical records, but literary expressions of how people viewed authority, fear, discipline, and the struggle between order and chaos. Writers used symbolic language to portray Solomon as a figure who confronted harmful forces directly, naming them, classifying them, and setting boundaries around them. This theme matched how earlier cultures explained internal conflict. They used stories of spirits to express fear, ambition, confusion, envy, or destructive impulses. Solomon, known for wisdom, became the character who understood these forces better than anyone. In these narratives, he controlled them not through violence but through insight and authority. One of the most influential sets of later writings described 72 spirits under Solomon's command. These figures appeared in medieval manuscripts that tried to connect Solomon's wisdom with a structured understanding of negative forces. Each spirit carried a title such as king, duke, marquis, or earl. These titles reflected the social ranks familiar to medieval writers rather than anything from Solomon's own era. Each spirit represented a human fear, weakness, or desire. Medieval authors used these descriptions to explore psychology through symbolic characters. They portrayed Solomon as someone who recognized each force, confronted it, and assigned it a place. These narratives symbolize the idea that true leadership requires understanding harmful influences instead of ignoring them. Other stories introduce the idea of a ring or seal connected to Solomon's authority. Writers used this ring as a symbol of judgment, clarity, and moral strength. In these accounts, the ring gave Solomon the ability to expose lies or direct forces that represented danger or confusion. The ring symbolized organized thinking and disciplined leadership. Artists and poets used this symbol for centuries, and it became part of the legend attached to Solomon's name. It shaped the way later generations imagined the relationship between authority and unseen influences. Scholars today view these stories as expressions of cultural ideas, not historical events, but the impact on literature and art remains significant. Late in life, Solomon faced internal strain inside the kingdom. His many marriages brought political alliances, but also introduced different customs and tensions. Advisors warned that the unity among the tribes weakened. People complained openly about labor requirements and taxes. Officials enforced work quotas with little flexibility. Rebellion began to form under individuals such as Jeroboam. These early movements failed, but they revealed frustration that had grown during years of heavy state projects. The kingdom stayed together during Solomon's lifetime only because of his authority. The unity did not survive long after his death. When Solomon died, his son Rehoboam became king. The tribes approached the new ruler and asked for relief from the heavy workload placed on them during Solomon's rule. Rehoboam rejected their request, choosing a harsher path. This decision triggered a split. 10 tribes left and formed the northern kingdom. This division showed that the pressure built over decades had reached its limit. Solomon had built wealth, expanded influence, and strengthened the kingdom, but the long-term strain weakened the internal structure. His success created a powerful state, but the cost burdened the people in ways that became clear only after his rule ended. Solomon's legacy remains strong because his story blends political history, leadership decisions, cultural development, and later folklore. His wisdom shaped laws, influenced neighboring nations, strengthened diplomacy, and guided complex projects. His name became linked to insight, judgment, and authority. Over time, storytellers expanded his legacy by connecting him to symbolic forces that represented human struggle. These stories, though not historical, show how societies viewed him as someone who confronted powerful influences and organized them through knowledge and discipline. Solomon's story continues to attract interest because it gives a detailed look at how leadership, ambition, responsibility, and cultural imagination shaped the world of ancient Israel and the centuries of storytelling that followed.